a court of fairies and fiction. Akafath Girls Podcast. Hosts Mel Liv and Aka. A bookish theory and discussion podcast for the Akatar, Crescent City, and Tug series, as well as other romantasy books. Special episode, interview with John Vertullo.
Yay! Okay, so we have John Vertullo with us today. Hi, John.
Hi.
For those of you who don't know, he plays amongst many, many different characters. He plays Cassian in the Akatar series. And so we are here to ask him our most burning questions. And John, just to introduce ourselves to you, I'm Olivia.
I'm Mel. I'm Eka.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, great. So I guess we'll start. And I know that you get asked this all the time, but how did you get into voice acting?
Sure. So the main way I got into voice acting, first was acting. I started performing in children's theater when I was 11. So I've been acting for a while.
Oh, wow.
But I went to school for film and TV. So I was working behind the camera in camera department specifically for a while. And it was actually my wife that suggested, oh, it's a fun date night. Let's go audition for this local play. That's a thing people do, I guess. But you used to like acting. Try it. And I wasn't really satisfied with the job I was doing. It should have been a clue, but I was paying more attention to the choices the actors were making on set than my actual job. So it should have been a sign that maybe I should have tried getting back into it. But we did the show, and it was kind of a spark because the show was a disaster, but I realized I was having more fun doing a disaster of a show than my favorite day on set. It was okay, let me actually start looking into this. And then I started auditioning with more regularity and doing community theater shows, taking professional classes, and then started finding work on my own. My wife actually she also works in the film industry. She made a connection with a woman named Heidi Rue, who owns or co-owns Atlanta Voiceover Studio, which is in Atlanta, Georgia. And they started chatting, and Heidi said to my wife, oh, well, if your husband's getting into acting, has he tried voiceover? No, but I mean, I'm sure he'd like it. So again, another date night, we decided to do the intro class that they had, and basically haven't looked back. So, and I was able to switch to full-time, and just kind of figured out how to make a career out of it. So very grateful for my wife. Very supportive.
Changed my life.
Literally.
Oh my gosh. Okay. How did you hear about the Akatar audition, and was Cassian who you originally wanted to play?
Ooh, interesting question. So basically, I had only very recently been added to Graphic Audio's roster of talent. I had auditioned for them, and I think the first project I did was it was a smaller series, but I'd only done one character up to that point. Mm-hmm. And then I got an audition for Cassian, and I'd never heard of the series. So I also didn't realize that for Graphic Audio, it's typically you're not auditioning. Typically, it's just the director's cast from their roster of people they know and they enjoy working with, and they feel oh, this person would be great for this role. This is who I hear in my head from our talent pool.
That's cool.
But if it's a bigger title, that's where they start auditioning, because it actually has to be approved by the author.
Yeah.
So a lot of their bigger, New York Times bestsellers, those require author approval for the core cast.
Oh. Okay.
So I got an email, but I didn't realize it was out of the norm. So I was oh, okay, I audition all the time. Let's do the normal thing. So I prepped for it, and this is even more strange in retrospect, but this was actually a directed audition. So Colleen, the director, got on. We had a session together, and we did multiple reads to try to figure out where he kind of lived, and I came kind of with with the research I had done and some of the choices I was going to make, and she helped fill in the gaps because I'd never heard of the series. So if there was anything that like, oh, by the way, this is important, she helped fill in some gaps that maybe weren't as apparent. And then from there, Sarah J. Maas approved it, and then I got an email saying, "Hey, you're Cassian. Like, when are you available? We need to start recording this." And then the rest is history.
Oh my God. Yeah, we've been hearing that like a lot of them are mostly from like the director and everything, and how she sees like the vision, you know.
Yeah, and that can be kind of a double-edged sword, because if you end up doing the same sorts of projects with the same director on their roster, then they start only kind of hearing certain characters. It's like, no, I could do that weird creature who you just never asked me to. Like, I have a creature. Like, do you want to hear a creature sound? I could do it. So it's challenging because like the consistency is great, and especially when people get to know you. But sometimes it starts pigeonholing you, like, oh, you're always going to be the Cassian-esque or
the golden
whatever
retriever,
it may be,
dude.
Yeah, we're gonna like. I'll always hear you as X, Y, or Z, and it's funny because different directors, as you start playing parts, you're like, oh, it's from this. I'm probably gonna be this. Yep, I'm this type of. Okay, got it. So, but it's fun when they start. If they hear you in something else, like, oh, I never thought of you. But yeah. No, I can. I absolutely. I want to hear it. Yeah. Okay, you're this guy. This is great. So it's fun throwing them some curveballs too.
Oh my God.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, we're gonna like just popcorn it.
Yeah,
so.
sure.
Try to not talk over each other.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you ever spoken to Sarah J. Maas?
The signal's a little garbly there, but I think you're asking if I've ever spoken to Sarah J. Maas. The answer is no, unfortunately. The closest I came was that initial approval where my audition was submitted a bunch of other people, and she said, like, yeah, I'm cool with this guy. So I don't know how much of that was like how big the pool of people auditioning for Cassian was within graphic audio, but so far as I know, that's the only exposure she had. I did. There was rumor for a minute there that I think Hulu acquired the rights to the TV.
Yeah.
They were going to make a TV show, potentially
It's
still
like,
are.
nobody knows now.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything.
So that was my one, because I'm an on-camera actor as well. I don't look like Cassian, but I was like, well, she has approved me before. Agents, can we maybe like make a connect here? Because I might be able to like at least get like a second look, maybe just to kind of skirt some stuff. So whatever angle I can get, I'll take.
Right.
You totally should. Oh my gosh, there are like multiple characters you could play.
Yeah.
I am like so behind that.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Yeah. And if they want to, get me a trainer, maybe I could pull off a Cassian. Just, yeah. I don't quite have this.
Cassian,
a Balthazar, a Lanthus, literally anything.
Yeah.
Like,
but yeah, no, Cassian. Cassian always reminds me more of like you take like Jason Momoa as like a body type. Yeah. That's more of my headcanon for Cassian. So
yes,
that's okay. They love you.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
I love that.
All right, let's see. Which ACOTAR book was your personal favorite in terms of you and then in terms of your character?
Ooh. I mean, it's interesting because I think each book for me, this is such a cop-out answer, but I feel like each book hits different. So it's kind of hard to pick, because each one showed a new facet of Cassian. Yeah. And obviously, we had the most screen time in the later books, screen time, audio time. So, like, cool, more content that I can sink my teeth into, and I can pick maybe more subtle journeys, or I get a different arc that I can try to map out as we're going through it. Like, oh, I really want to like pin an undertone here so that we can touch on this thing later so that it hits fully down here. So I could plan out the arc a little better with more content, but with less, it's also like, okay, he's only here for like a little punctuation. So how do I make this really impactful?
Punchy.
And yeah, how do I provide the punchiness and support the stories that are being told without pulling from it?
Right.
So each one has its own challenge and is enjoyable for its own reasons. It's
Yeah.
kind of hard to pick a favorite.
Do you have a favorite scene of Cassian's?
Actually, I think it's the first training scene with Feyre where it's like the fighting pit.
Yes.
There was something just really satisfying because I actually used to take boxing. And so there was,
Oh,
and it was
nice.
funny hearing Colleen, like as I was, because it was, directed.
Yeah.
So hearing Colleen go like, have you done, like, this feels like you've kind of done something like that? Like you feel, have you like coached something like that? Like, oh, I used to box. This was like, I kind of know the cadence, the rhythm. Like this feels familiar to me. So there's something really satisfying about like, oh no, I'm going to put her through her paces. Like, I got it. We're going to wreck her day. Cool. I'm gonna make her hurt tomorrow in a good way, but also, like, why did I agree to that?
Yeah.
So that was really enjoyable for me.
I do love how he was like so on point with the training, but then at the same time he was also nosy. And he was like, so
Yeah.
you
You're like,
live here for good? Like, give us an answer, girl.
how much can I get away with? If you're leaving tomorrow, then I'm really gonna make you hurt. But if not, like, I don't pull the punches. Grumble. Oh, we're gonna take it low and slow, I guess.
Yeah, just a guest.
Yeah. God, lame.
Love it.
Oh my God.
Wow. So what is your on that? So we did favorite scene, but what's your favorite quote of Cassian's overall of the
Yeah.
books?
I mean, I guess just for so I have two. One I actually, as much as it's my favorite, I don't know it off the top of my head, but the put your hands on the headboard, iconic.
Of course.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's
The best.
it's what, right? Like that's like one of the first things that comes up when people
All
look
the
up like
words.
Cassian quotes. Like, all right, there it is. Attaboy. But there's another one, and the main reason is because it was in the audition. But
Okay.
there's a line, I think it's in part one of the second book, where he and Feyre are flying. They're going to see Nesta, and he's already had kind of the spark of the mating bond go off, and he's trying to wrestle with everything in his head. And there's a moment where they land, and she walks away, and he kind of basically mutters to himself, like, I don't know that I can, like, I don't know what is happening right now. And it was just this really personal, you see the shell come off, and you see that kind of like raw, maybe a little scared, vulnerable person, really, I think for the first time firmly, outside of like, oh, a warrior that had this epic fight. Like, okay, that's a different type of, this is emotional vulnerability. And it was
Right.
really cool. And I remember it specifically because that was the audition scene. And when Feyre walks away and I delivered the line, I remember Colleen coming over like, oh, Cassian. And I was like, all right, I think I hit it. I think I did the thing that I was trying to do. Because even in the audition had this like very emotional response of like, ow, I felt that. Like you hit it. So yeah, that scene hits a certain spot. Like, oh, that's a very fond memory of like, and that was, I think, the moment that I booked it.
That's
Nice. Nice.
oh my gosh.
And I
And I
love
remember
that
circling
scene
back
so
during the recording, and she was even like, "You know this scene?" Yes, I do.
Quite fondly.
Yeah, exactly.
Quite fondly.
Do you believe Cassian when he says that he has like no other special powers? Because he's like, oh, I'm just an Illyrian bastard, and I'm not like Az or Reese. I don't have anything
Yeah.
else. Like, does he or doesn't he though? Because I can't really.
I mean, at least with everything that we've seen up to this point, I'm inclined to believe him. Like, he's pretty much a kind of everything on his sleeve sort of guy.
Yeah.
So if he did, I think he'd use it. Because
Yeah.
he's not the type to shy away. Like, if you have an advantage in a fight, he's all for using it.
Oh yeah.
So I feel like he wouldn't. Why he's not one to like have a secret advantage.
Yeah.
He's going to use it from the start. He's not going to wait for it to become dire and then pull some trick out of his hat. He's just going to use it and end the fight before it really even starts, if he can.
Right.
Yeah.
That's more his style. So I feel like if there was something that he knew about, we would have already heard about it. If there's something that happens that he's still figuring out, then he strikes me as the type of person that's going to like, all right, he's going to go into the training ground with no one there, and he's going to put it through its paces to find the limit of what he can actually do so that he understands it. He leans into things that he acquires. He's not, the discipline that he shows is one that like, oh, he's not going to be shy about it. He's going to like, no, here's exactly what I can do, and I'm going to wait to break it out because I know when I need to, and I'll know exactly the limits, so I know when to cut it off if it's going to hurt me or anyone
Very
around
tactile. Very
me. Yeah,
tactile.
kind of
Yeah.
using it tactically and strategically, and I think that's just kind of how his brain works usually. So barring any, like if it's a surprise and it comes out in a fight, okay, that's one thing, but I don't think he knows of any powers under the surface that he just hasn't used.
And I like how that's like how Cassian and Azrael are kind of always like, oh, it's Cassian and Azrael, and they're always kind of like compared, but they're like very different.
Yeah, in
at
that
like,
regard, right?
They're complete opposites.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but again, that and kind of going back to archetypes and writing structure, it's important that they're unique because if they were too similar, then all of a sudden we lose interest when they're just duplicate. Like, from the bird's eye view of like, oh, if they're too similar, merge them. They don't need to be separate characters.
Yeah.
So them being distinct is valuable from the literature perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll start with this. What's like one of your biggest ACOTAR theories that you might have? It can have to do with Cassian. It doesn't have to do with Cassian. We'll kind of start with that.
Oh, interesting. There was one I was reading about like what Cassian saw with the bone carver. And it was interesting watching everyone talk about what they thought he saw. And I think for me, there is something very Shakespearean about him seeing Mother. And that feels like probably from a literature perspective, I could see that as being the most impactful thing because of that story arc. Then we really don't see it much, but I like the idea of it being his mom because it's it would throw him off his game probably the most, in my opinion. And like his relationship with his brothers so much because he didn't have a mother and the maternal instinct, him basically being adopted, like all of those layers all kind of point to his mom being a pivotal kind of a touchstone for his development. So
or
if
Reese's
that's what,
mom.
yeah, right, or that's an interesting one too, that if it was Reese's mom, then it's like, this is the person that taught you to be good, that saw
And it's just
goodness
like,
in the
oh
world.
my God.
Yeah. I hadn't thought about that one, but I kind of like that too.
Oh, that's
But yeah, just the idea of a mother figure, be it Reese's mom or his mom.
Right.
That was one theory that I was like, oh, I kind of actually dig that. Like, that's cool. I could buy that.
especially because like a lot of his like trauma and all of that stems from, they threw her off the side of a mountain. I didn't get to bury her. I was like 3 when they took me from her. And then he like killed all the guys that like had a hand in her death. And like,
Yeah,
even
he went
from
full on
that-
like Anakin sand people on them. Like, it was not good.
Not my mother.
Yep.
That's the most perfect analogy too for it. Anakin sand people.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, not great.
But yeah, that bone carver question, I was like, we're just like, okay, who is he like terrified to see? Like, who is his like downfall? Because like,
Well, and I think if it's his
And-
mom too, because I think so much of it's going to be am I a disappointment?
Mm.
Like not knowing really about, how she views him, and no matter the relationship with your parents, I think everyone at some level wants approval from their family.
Right.
So having that moment of like, have I made the right call up to this point? And the bone carver being able to just manipulate what he's saying and undermine any thought he had of moving forward or anything he was trying to do. Like, to me, that's the character. Like, this person could say 3 words and stop him cold, or just appear and stop him cold. So, like, that was the one I read that I was like, I buy into that headcanon.
I like really quickly based off that, I had this like really wild, like kind of crack theory that like when we get into the Koshi War, and since Koshi's like a Death Lord, what he's gonna do that like Hybern and the rest didn't do is like he's going to use his ability of illusion and death and all of this to kind of bring back like everyone's dead people. Because
the most traumatic,
the thing that's gonna throw
classic
them
necromancer
off during a war is gonna be seeing like the ghost or like the body or whatever of their dead people that they loved. So
Better.
See this army of the dead of everyone that they loved having to like
Uncle Ben
re-kill
walking
them.
across a battlefield.
Yeah.
Universe, that's fine.
Like it would be so fucked up, but like I don't know, I feel like it would be epic too.
But it also feels like a way to, I don't know, I feel like necromancers in general in fantasy are a nice, quick way to get it dark.
Yeah.
And emotional. Like, humans have been trying to process what it means to die since we were first here. So turning to necromancy and processing loved ones that have died, like, yeah, that feels very on brand if we're taking it in a darker, more mature direction. Like, oh, cool, like, this is something that everyone grapples with. Yeah. Everyone dies, so here we go.
Yeah. And it's like, it's not even the person. It's just like a mindless vessel. Yep. And it's like just the trauma of them like having to re-kill like the people they love.
Yeah.
That makes me think of Doctor Who.
Yep, or Buffy. Buffy had like multiple story arcs about letting people go rather than trying to bring them back.
There's one in Charmed too.
Yep. Yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing, man.
It's a thing. So I was like, maybe. All right. The big one. I'm going to ask the big one that we've been asking everyone else. And I'm
all right, let's go.
If your answer is different.
Okay.
Do you think that Nessie in our end game or do you think Cassian will survive the series?
Ooh.
Oh, God.
Okay. So, I feel like Nestian is, if only because, like, and this sort of touches on the whole mating bond concept, where, like, I feel as though they are because of the mating bond being less about love and more about, like, procreation and what the cauldron wants and the universe's influence. So it has very little to do with them, and they're going to be drawn to each other regardless, like in an uncontrolled manner. So I feel like that's pretty locked.
So you do feel
short
like
of someone
the mating
dying.
bond is real, though.
I think it is, because at least in the descriptions I've come across, it feels more like compulsion and less like, I'm attracted to this person.
Yeah.
Oh, they're actually really lovely. Oh, okay, here's a nice, natural, deep, loving thing. No. It's like, there's something in my head going off that I need to be near this person whether I want to be or not. So it feels more like someone's compelled to do it rather than wanting to do it. Which I think is a distinction between the mating bond and love. And I think they even comment on, like, they're not quite the same. And people are mated that are not married, or they're married and they're not mated. So it's that's kind of where I draw that distinction. But as far as will Cassian survive the series, I think he would be a great candidate for a kill-off. I don't know if he will, but he would be a perfect candidate because of...
I'm so sorry, Olivia.
But here's why. Because he is fairly universally liked. He has more positive moments than like, I'm conflicted. I don't want to like him, but I do. it's pretty squarely like, no, on the whole, usually audience likes Cassian or are ambivalent. If there was balance, then I'd be like, okay, nah, he's interesting. But if he becomes too liked, he's a great candidate because he's so well liked to kill him off for maximum impact. So from a literary perspective, great candidate to murder.
Validation.
Because it would, get and also you cut off the head of the army effectively. So who's your leadership in the army? Well, is it the Valkyries and Nesta? Who's going to take over? Like, that leaves a power void at a time where they would theoretically be vulnerable.
Yep.
So it's great narrative structure.
Yep.
But that's just my thought. Anyone that is fairly universally liked, I think, should be a candidate. There's a phrase in screenwriting and writing in general called "kill your darlings."
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, kill your darling. If he's too much of a darling, kill him. I know.
So it's endgame by death, Olivia, like I said.
Yeah, right.
Oh my
Yeah.
Real quick. Do you suspect that that's why some of Cassian's traits that some of the fandom are not fond of, that Sarah J. Maas could be trying to pull those out so that he's not so liked, so that he's still, human in a sense, and that like he can stay and not just be a Gary.
Well, also I think, to your point, it makes him more human, right? We all make mistakes. We all do things that we're not proud of, that we wish we didn't do, or maybe try to like kind of. We know we already did it, but maybe can we like walk it back a little bit or lessen the blow? So, to your point, it makes him human. And that's just going to make him a compelling character, period. Whether or not that's to protect him from being killed off or just to keep him interesting from a base level of like, if he becomes too boring, people will stop caring about him. If he becomes too much of a perfect person, okay, we need conflict. Like, that's usually what drives a story forward. So if he never provides conflict, why is he here? So if he gets a sunset moment, like, fine, let him be off there.
Yeah. So do you think that in a way she's kind of making him a little more problematic in the later books just so that he's not so perfect, or maybe so less people will be upset if she kills them off? Because I can't really...
I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily like, I don't know if it's, I have to protect him from being killed off, so I need to make him I need to make him make mistakes. I think it's, well, if he gets more time or airtime, then he needs to start making mistakes like anyone makes. He just needs to have some believable character flaw, or flaws, plural. So, and then we need to see the consequences of those mistakes, because if he's in it for more and he's driving the story forward, what is he doing to help drive the story? That's providing that conflict or resolution to conflict. Yes.
Speaking of more, without the E, I have to ask you about that, because that is just like yes, there is a magnetic, chemical pool between Nessian, but then there's Morgan.
Yeah,
and
Morgan. I've been so frustrated by Cassian because I would like to ignore the cauldron and just like, come on, dude, like,
enough
really,
about more.
This is more. Come on, like, you guys you're already in a relationship here. Nesta's just rooting.
Yeah.
That's my. I wish if I was Cassian's friend, I would like to have a long sit down with a drink and just try to. I mean, again, if we can ignore the pull of the, because I can't. All right, fine. Cauldron's pulling you. I can't do anything about that. But let's be real. Like, it's always been more. That's my feeling, and it hurts every time we have scenes with more. That's always my like. Oh, you. And so I always try to inject that thought of like, it should have been her. It should have been her. It should have been her. So like the a little bit of that longing that it's too late now, and I can be playful, but that ship sailed, unfortunately. So I always tried to kind of put that in.
Ask Go ahead, Eka.
What about Tanwin, the Valkyrie? Because
Yeah, I
he
mean,
had a history
he
with her
did.
too.
And that was, if
Yeah.
if my history is correct, I think that was his first
Love
relationship outside
outside
of.
the night.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Correct.
So he went
Yeah.
on this whole spiel about like how beautiful she was and how strong she was, and she has a smile like a storm, and da 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 da.
Yeah.
And then like with Nesta, it's just like, oh, she has great boobs, and I'm like,
He has
Get a
great
nice rack.
tits.
Yeah, like, dude,
Cassian,
come on,
what?
man. That's
And then they're
not.
like, oh, he had to be beaten up and tied to a wagon so he didn't go help Tanwin. So I was like, was she his mate? And then he's just like,
No, I would say no,
no.
because he's so I think the giveaway there is that he was so confused by when that mating pull started to happen.
Mhm.
He was sort of like, whoa, 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 what the heck is this? Like, it threw him off. So if he'd already felt a mating pull, this wouldn't have been news.
Hmm.
Like, this wouldn't be weird. He'd be like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, I get it. But it was all presented as like, I want to fight. What the heck is happening? Like,
Mhm.
why do I like her? I'm going over, like, I don't want to like her. She's kind of mean. Like, she's rude.
But he
I'm
fucking
good.
hates you. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. So
Why do your sisters love you? I'm like, Cassian. Cassian.
So for me, it's like, no, if this was the second time that he'd felt this, none of that would have been happening. I think it would have just been sort of a reluctant acceptance. But it's all new, so he wouldn't have felt that pull.
Yeah.
So I think that was a first love,
Mhm.
sure. But I don't think that was a first mate.
So
I don't even know. Has it been discussed if they can have multiple mates?
Yes, they can.
They can. Okay.
Well, so in canon it isn't said, but Sarah said she might want to dabble in that at some point. But it
Oh,
was
like the implication that like,
Yeah.
okay, it's not
So-
firmly, but in interviews she's maybe said,
like
oh,
me.
I
also
maybe
could've
want
been,
yeah.
multiple.
Also in canon, there were multiple threads with Nesta. Like Nesta had multiple threads, whereas
And I was like,
so far every time we see like a mating bond snap into place, it's just the one. With
mhm.
Nesta, it's multiple. So I don't know if that seems
You
like
can almost see SJM like kind of, what do I
Spell, a
wanna
death
do
bond,
here?
some sort
are they
of
poly?
maid.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like
I mean, okay, that would probably be my ideal. Like, all right,
a
fine.
reverse
We have
harem.
Nesta, but also more. Like, can we just have our cake and eat it too, please?
Yeah.
Just for Cassian. Like, let him have the
Cassian.
nice relationship with more. And fine, the Cauldron has told me I have to be in this. It's sort of like a marriage, like an arranged marriage, really.
Yeah.
The Cauldron has said,
Yeah.
sorry, dude.
Like an open
But like
marriage.
they have an agreement with more, and like Nesta can find someone else. Like, no, we're here for very specific reasons.
Yes.
More like a king and queen. Like, yeah, okay, this was arranged, but here's the person I actually love,
Yeah.
and like that's cool. No, you have your one, and we're good. It's not so bad. We're everything's fine.
Yeah.
I would be really very stoked if that was like what happened, but that's too easy. So it's not going to be.
Moore doesn't like men that way, apparently. I was like,
No.
bait and switch. Come on.
Yeah.
Come
okay.
on.
It's fine.
Mm,
They're just, like I said, ship sailed. It's all good. It's
Yeah.
just painful every time I see her.
Let it go, Cassian. Let it go.
No. That is not going to be when he lets go ever. It's going to be like, hey,
Oh, she's perfect.
Uh,
Oh my God.
it's Deadpool. It's
Yeah.
basically that. Like, this is never coming back, right? Okay. All right.
But if it
I
were
want
to
you
come
near
back.
me. I feel better with you close. But if you're not into it, that's cool. I want you to be happy. If this is you happy, fine. I'm cool with that.
What about the friendship between Cassian and Eris?
How do you mean?
Will there
As
be?
far as like challenging for his romantic interest?
Like, at first, because of what happened to Moore, Eris, Cassian and Azriel were just like, Eris is a jerk, like, screw him.
Yeah.
Now we see Cassian and Eris kind of being buddy-buddy, and Cassian's like, maybe he's not all that bad.
I know you're a
Yeah.
good guy if you'd stop being a coward. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
Cassian.
I mean, and some of that's
I've
like,
known monsters. You're not one of them.
right.
It was very
It's
bros before hoes.
yes. Yeah. It's, and, you know, because of his warrior background, I think that is a really important thing of like, he doesn't, he will harshly judge cowards. And if you're a coward in his mind, he has no time for you. You're a joke to him. So the only way to garner respect and build with him is fine, prove you're not a coward. If I've already written you off as one, if you give me reason to believe you're not, I might begrudgingly start coming around to not actively hating you or ribbing you quite so hard. And now we'll start respecting you. But he's very willing to like throw all that respect away if you give him any reason to believe that you're going to bail on him.
Oh no.
It's like loyalty is a core tenet of his.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
So if anything even remotely betrays that, he's out.
Well, I find that like funny because like he will act like that like with everyone, and then like it's just the way that he is with Nesta drives me up a wall. I'm like, what do
Yeah.
you think about them as a couple, and how Cassian like never says I love you or like compliments her or anything?
Yeah.
Did the
And
same
you know,
when he had-
I think an arranged marriage is really a good descriptor. For me, that's like always been the feeling of like, and it's not like they can say no,
Yeah.
especially when we start involving the idea of like, no, it's a magic compulsion. It's not just a family
Mhm.
duty. It's no, there is an element
Mhm.
of the the weave at work. Like things are pushing you that you can't actively control. It's not like, well, if you just stood up to your parents, like you can't really stand up to the cauldron like that. So an arranged marriage to me is the perfect way to describe a mating bond. And like, ugh,
So do you
as
think
problematic as the relationship is,
yeah.
I think it just kind of has to be, and there's just always going to be some tension there. They need a good therapist to explain, like,
God,
sorry, so the cauldron made us do this.
Yeah.
This isn't our choice. How do we emotionally come to terms with the fact that we are being compelled to do this?
Mhm. Do you think that they got married after Akasif? Because I know it was supposed to be in 3 days, but then like they're
Yeah.
meeting and
They weren't wearing
fast
mating
and
rings.
not wearing rings, and
Yeah.
it was weird.
I honestly don't know if I thought about whether they got married. I feel like if there's not like a compelling reason to that, sorry, everyone else is telling us we have to do this for the kingdom, like there's some responsibility there. If they don't have to do it, they're not going to. It's just like, well, if we
I feel
don't need
like it
to,
was postponed or something because he was kind of
yeah,
really pissy and Hofast, and like it was just really weird, that
bitter.
whole
Yeah.
dynamic. Yeah, I was like, did
Yeah.
he fall
So,
off? Is that why? Like,
yeah, I feel like if it was set up that they were going to, I don't think he would have been the one to bail. Because he's usually the chaser, not the chasee.
yeah, yeah.
So he would have been like, all right, fine, we're doing this. Okay. And set everything up. And then like, she's not showing up, is he?
Well, I
Okay.
mean, his first thought when she was like, "Yeah, I want an ornate ceremony and all of this," was like, "More won't let me live this down." And I was like,
Yep. I'm going to be in a suit. She's going to
Cassian.
give me shit. Yeah. First thought about your own wedding is like, that girl I pine after is going to think about that. Like, that to me is the perfect descriptor of, yeah, dude, you're not over. Like,
Oh shit. So who do you think the big betrayal is going to be in the future book? Because Sarah has said like there's going to be a big betrayal, and we're all just like, oh god,
Who is it?
who is it? Who do you think?
hmm.
Do you think it'll?
I
be?
mean, I don't even know if I've had, like, it would, let me put it this way. It would make more sense for Cassian to die than to be the person to betray someone.
Mhm.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah.
Unless we had some really compelling, like, if that betrayal was in the vein of Bone Carver becoming his mother, telling him what to do, sort of thing. Like, unless it's some huge, like big
magical.
reveal that he was so undermined by an illusion that he, thinking he's being faithful, thinking he's being loyal, ended up doing something because he thought it was the right thing to do, or was told by someone that manipulated him. That would be a compelling reason, but I think he makes a better death than Betrayer, personally. But
Okay.
I might also be a hair protective of him.
Could be?
I mean, I don't know, because again, we talked about how Cassian kind of plays everything. He doesn't really play things close to his vest.
Right.
So I think you look to the characters that play things closest to the vest, because you still have some mystique there.
More Amryn, Jurian, like those are my top.
Anyone that you have like okay, no, they're firmly for the good guys, but they kind of were doing that thing.
Morgan.
Whenever you give those little hints, and Moore might be a really compelling one, because then it would be the deepest betrayal to Cassian, who is maybe still holding a candle for her. Like, but would that be the biggest betrayal for what has the most impact for an audience? I always try to look for like, okay, who's going to hurt the most?
Technically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be very
That
big.
would be amazing.
Who has the most impact that if you want to blow everything up, who would do it? Who could do it? And start kind of working it down from there. And like, is there a reason they couldn't that is easily explained, or like has a baseline? Sorry, he has no reason to, or she has no reason to. It would have to be something crazy, a la manipulation, or some sort of spell that maybe a breadcrumb was placed earlier. Short of that, who do we still not know things about? Like a core thing.
Amryn and Jurian, technically.
So now we start narrowing our list.
Azrael.
Yeah, there is a laundry list
There's
of
a
people
lot.
we still don't know everything about. But I look for who has the biggest impact, and who could we add a nugget of their past about that would justify from their eyes that they're not the villain, they're doing the right thing.
I mean,
because the best stories and the best villains never think they're the villain.
Yeah,
That's true.
Personally, that's why I think it's Amryn, because like she's lied about a lot. And she's like, oh, I lied. Oh, I lied. Oh, I lied. Oh, lied about going into the prison. Lied about getting out of the prison. Lied about the amulet. I was like, do you ever stop lying? And what else are you hiding? Why do you want Reese to
that way
become
about
like
Morgan,
or does that
too.
or does that eliminate her because of how often the frequency? Like she would make a great red herring to me. Like, oh, okay, pull the attention over here, when really this person's been here the whole time. That you would never expect. So pull attention to her. That again, from like a screenwriting or narrative perspective, like, oh, okay, great red herring because she always lies. Cool, we can redirect attention and then have someone drop a bomb.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And like somehow prove that it can't be her because of this.
So do you think that, so there's a line that Cassian has in the Band of Exiles manor in Akasif when he, like internally, and he's like, oh, that male that was once human, that was resurrected by the cauldron, like human or whatever he is now, about Jurian. And I was like, that could be a clue. That could be like a really good, like solid clue where if Amryn was the red herring and they're pulling the attention from Jurian, because I mean, we really don't know what he can do now versus what he can't. If
and same with Nessa. Like, well, does she qualify? What is? And it's also interesting, like the need for identity, that need to like, okay, it is this person. Like this person is X or Y. You have a fixed identity of, your race or your what type of creature you are. That seems really, really important. When it's like, well, but why though? Like, what is so critical about being one single defined thing? What's wrong with being a little bit of this, a little bit of that? We don't. Yeah, right. And like, well, no. I mean, the culture I was raised in says I'm Illyrian, and everything else says it. Yeah, the cauldron messed with me, But for the most part, I am, that doesn't change my identity.
Mm-hmm.
So like sense of identity and sense of self, I think is also, it's a really important theme in the series.
Yeah.
And we see everyone kind of has a moment where their sense of identity shifts.
Yeah.
So
Before we continue, the next question touches on a hot topic in the fandom. Feel free to skip forward if needed.
Melanie loves to talk about that hike all the time.
She drives me
Silver
crazy.
Flakes. So what are
Yeah.
your thoughts on the whole hike situation, and kind of walk
Yeah.
us through that?
I mean, I think for me, I view it as he was upset and he was punishing her.
Ha!
And he, even in retrospect, took it too far. And he feels regret that, like, okay, I can't take back that I did that. That was shitty of me. I'm not going to say it was, but it was. So how do I, through my
I'm not gonna admit
actions... Yeah, no. Come on. Because, and I think there's a wrestling match in his head of like, well, it was actually like, but the hike though, like I felt the need to do this. She needed this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there's wrestling match like, yeah, but you took it a little too far. Like,
Could have talked to her. Could have
yes,
encouraged
but
her.
yeah, communicate. I don't know, with your words.
I
Maybe.
know, right? Not
so
joking
I
about
feel
that
like
one.
this-
other appendage.
Well, and we were talking about characters being human and making mistakes, and I think this is a great example of one where, like, yeah, he took it too far, but he can justify it to anyone that asks him, why did you do it? That defensiveness would kick in, he would justify why he did it. Meanwhile, in his head, he would probably, that was a bit too much. I should probably, and maybe I shouldn't have done that. So I don't think he's overly proud of what he did, but he did it, and I don't think he's the type of person to be like, no, you're right, I shouldn't have. In his heart of hearts, I think he knows that he shouldn't have, and we see some evidence that, like, he does feel bad about that. But again, I don't think he would ever put that to words. So that's
Especially
kind of
not
my
to
feeling of, like,
Nesta.
I mean, you can hold both things in your head that, like, you deserved this and I took it too far at the same time.
Do you think that Nesta and Cassian can work it out and, like, actually have a better relationship than how it's been going?
It would take a marriage counselor. I'm a big fan of marriage counselors. I don't know if they have them, but they need one, like, bad.
I feel like
Especially if they have kids.
I
Like
feel
that
like
poor
it would
child.
take, like, Cassian. I don't know. I feel like the root issue of this is Cassian always choosing Reese over Nesta. Always. Every single time. Like, he threatens her. He says he's going to kill her. He's like, I'm going to execute you. And, like, Cassian says nothing. And I don't know why. I'm like,
I mean,
your mate, like, speak up.
Again, this is one of those, like, I can see a compelling, in his head, what's happening in the moment of, like, my brother, my leader, I'm still rank and file.
The
That's an
reason
order.
I'm alive.
Yeah. If he gives an order, I'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Like, that loyalty cuts both ways. So
But how
if
far would he take it? Like,
I think that's
the
the interesting question. And I think over the course of the book, we see that maybe start to get questioned a little bit. And I think that would be an interesting thing for SJM to explore later of, like, where is the line that he draws? At what point is it always, no, like to pull another Star Wars reference, is it always good soldiers follow orders? Or is there some autonomy?
yeah. Because,
My
like, do
husband
you
has
think...
to say this.
I can't-
He says military has clause against unlawful and questionable ethical orders.
Was there anything about that order that was unlawful or unethical? And also, this is assuming they followed the same laws. They don't have NATO. They don't have Geneva. So
but
what are their... Star Wars is pulling back to Star Wars, like, the amount of war crimes in Star Wars is hilarious. So, like,
Okay.
what are there established, military doctrines in this universe?
Yeah.
So, what's a war crime? We may never know.
I mean,
Well,
nobody
here's
gets
the other
punished for their
thing
war
too. They
crimes.
would have to have due process of some kind, and there's hints throughout the book where there is a due process
Yeah.
and how they handle things, like with the lords of the different realms of that
Mhm.
universe. So, in that, Cassian would know of a due process if he felt that
It was
the order he
violated.
was given was unlawful.
Yeah, and he didn't say a word. So,
Ah.
like, that to me is another context that, like, oh, nope, that's all kosher. Okay. Wow.
Oh.
Do you
He
think
didn't say
would
anything. It wasn't
allow-
unlawful, even if he knows the rules, unless it was like he is the type of friend that if you murdered someone, he would help you hide the body.
Mhm.
But for the sake of argument, we'll say
My
let's
thought is
assume he
that
wasn't
might-
saying anything because it wasn't a violation.
Do you think if Reese ever, gave the order to actually, I don't know, kill Nesta, do you think he would let it happen? As of now?
Yeah, there would be a whole scene of him arguing. I think he would come really close, and then I think he would have internal conflict, argue with him over why, like, you can't. No, you're really. Are we doing this?
Your mate's sister? What?
Yeah, are
Confusion?
you
You serious?
being manipulated? What's happening? Like, there would be a whole scene around questioning. You actually want me to do what now?
Yeah.
Up to the point where I think he might actually start to do it with hesitation, and maybe not. If there was a fight, I think the internal conflict would pull his focus, and I think he would lose that fight.
Because I just
Like,
feel like he thinks
on a
that
good
Reese
day,
is
he could
joking, and
win, but I think he'd be way too conflicted, and I think that would give the out, and I think it would. If we were to make the scene, he would lose. She would get a killing blow, going purely off instinct, not trying to. She would get a killing blow, and I think the look he would give would be pride. That was really good.
Like, I want that so much.
Yeah.
You have no idea.
I if we're gonna have that scene, I think it would need to be, oh, yeah, you just got me. Nice. And then dead. And then she has to flee.
Oh, well, I've been saying like that it is going to come to blows between Nesta and Reese, and maybe Cassian does get caught in the crossfire. And
He's the
then-
spark.
yeah, and like maybe his last words are finally the "I love you," because that would hammer in the emotion.
Oh, that'd be a great moment too. Yeah, the pride, you kind of merge those two of I love you
yeah.
and like a sort of a Harrison Ford-esque, like, I love you. Like, you're awesome.
Dead.
Yeah. You don't even need the I know. It could still be I love you. But if we've held off for so long,
Yep.
give it the one right at the end.
Yeah.
There we go.
I mean, were you surprised that he didn't say that? Like, were you like did that catch you off guard? Like, huh, that's a little odd. Or were you?
No. I mean, again, like, it's tricky because you're in his headspace, so like it all felt very logical.
Yeah.
So it never jumped out at me as like, I am missing this thing. And the relationship was so contentious that, like, it's not terribly surprising. And he's not one to throw that word around. So yeah, I buy that.
Do you want to do like quick, like yes, no ones, rapid fire?
Sure.
Okay. Do you think Nessian will ever have kids?
Yes.
Ooh, that's a good one. Do you think Cassian is a Gwenriel or an Elriel shipper?
It's not a yes, no.
Well, it's
Wait a minute.
multiple choice. Do you think he's a Gwenriel shipper?
Yeah. There you go.
There we go.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know. Yes? Question mark? Yes, question mark.
Yes, question mark. That's good.
That's where I'm yep. Final answer.
Do you think Cassian will ever bring up Reese's sister?
No.
Do you
Okay.
think we'll get any more flashbacks of, I don't know, his childhood, his mother?
Mm, no, unless it's a standalone, like, offshoot book.
Mm.
It's
Do you
like
think
young
Cassian?
Cassian might be like,
Mm.
Do you think Cassie and Nesta will get another book?
no.
Do you think Cassian's a girl dad or boy dad?
100% girl dad.
Oh,
No question.
That's what we all
Yeah.
I love
I mean,
that.
everyone's
He'd
question.
be
They're
happy
like,
no matter what, but like, oh, zero question. Girl dad.
Do you think it's significant that he's the only character we see that has allergies? Or it's
Ooh.
frequent?
I love
No, but I think it also gives her a good out if something happens. That like she can build in some accidental tragedy. If she's like it's a good breadcrumb, if nothing else.
He has the same allergies I do.
Oh, there you go.
I'm allergic
And also
to
like the guy's
roses.
gotta have some weakness. Like he's a total badass. Like you need to cut him out from his legs in some way.
He's a tank.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
you can't just be impregnate. Superman needs a kryptonite.
Oh, that's good.
That is a good one.
That's
Same
good.
with the boys and was it Black Noir is allergic to peanuts, I think. And that's like how they get him is his peanut allergy.
Oh,
I
that's rough.
Spoiler, sorry.
You're fine. Fine.
Again, other universe, it's fine.
It's fine.
do you think Cassian will live long enough to see Nesta become like a leader of the Dust Court?
Ooh. If we go with our previous conversation, no. But he would be the reason she feels the confidence to do so.
Okay. That's what I thought.
So he's pivotal, but
Mhm.
he wouldn't see it.
Oh,
He would have that like I've seen the promised land moment.
Oh yeah.
Because he would know if she can do that, then she can do what she needs to.
So Cassian teaches Nesta the 8-pointed star technique in Akasif,
Mhm.
which he claims to have learned from the Valkyries. I think like we were talking about his previous lover. Do you think that the Valkyries were like the original members of the Dust Court? Or
I
have
mean,
anything to do with it? Because the symbolism is throwing me off.
I'm sure they had. I think as a reference point,
Yeah.
you know, they could be the in that could have been where inspiration was drawn,
Mhm.
and like, oh, we have this symbolism here that we're going to adopt because the values of these Valkyrie or the original Valkyries are the values we'd like to reflect.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it was necessarily like them deciding to do it so much as someone looking to them for inspiration, a la, you know, even in modern day, we look to the Greek pantheon and you know, how Greece ran their Senate for how we structure ours. And, you know, they were just trying to figure a system out, but I don't know that it was intentionally like, we're going to build this thing. I think it was more people looking back to decide how to structure it.
Thank you. I like Cassian a lot more now.
Yeah.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
I like him too.
New respect for Cassie.
Convenient if you have to play someone that you like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice when you can empathize with them and like them. And that's the goal at the end of the day of like empathize, understand the choices they're making enough that you can choose that every time.
Yeah. If I protect those who need it most, it'll be a death well spent. I love that line.
Yep.
Now
Yep.
I'm not looking
Classic.
to it.
Yep.
And it's
We
hard
were-
because we have already had like our big Cassian death scene. So like, do we get to? I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know.
But-
I don't know. Nesta
No.
did say it's a matter of time until it sticks in Akasif.
And Elaine
Mhm.
said he wants
Oh
to
yeah,
know
Elaine.
when.
No, it will not.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Do you think Elaine's vision has already happened?
I like that interpretation because then it creates the unknown of like, well, we don't know what will happen. Like, if there was no because trying to recall. It's been a minute since we did that scene. I'm trying to remember, like, for all intents and purposes, he was dead.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or was it like, Brink, it looked really bad.
He was bleeding out. The King of Hybern stepped on his wings. So he was like bleeding out.
I remember the scream. That blew out my voice, actually.
Yeah. And then Nessa like just lied on him, and he's like, run, go. And she's like, no, we'll do it together. So he was very hurt.
Yeah. Well, and was there anything in her vision that referenced seeing anything more specific than his death?
He was very vague.
They're talking about it or whatever, and he's talking about like his shredded wings and how they're healing, and he's like, it'll take a lot more than that to kill me, and then she just says, no, it will not. So I'm like, is it something minimal, like an allergy or something that's not his wings?
I mean,
destroyed?
Yeah, I view that as, to me, that's not necessarily prophetic. That's a statement of fact. Like, dude, you could have an aneurysm and you just wouldn't know.
Yeah.
That's like, I think more that's he's feeling all this bravado. She's trying to like, all right, back to earth now, kiddo. Like, let's bring the ego in a little bit. Congratulations on surviving what should have killed you. But like, let's be real. You could just have really bad food poisoning one day. We don't know. Just slow your roll.
Moment of reality.
You're on adrenaline and endorphins here. Just chill. So I don't know. In that context, I don't know how prophetic that was, but if we're taking it as prophecy, then yeah, I would say that's to be determined. Yeah, right. And if she was saying that it won't take that, then again, the Nesta kill could still be viable.
I want it.
Because he didn't get his wings straight. It's just one little stab.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The made weapons are in play.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Cassian being that loyal person, like that you said that you harped on, like maybe he jumps in front of someone. Maybe he just takes the blow for someone. Like the made weapon is going to automatically kill you, clearly. So
could be. I don't know. Time will tell. Well, thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.
Thank you for hanging out with us.
Of course.
Yeah.
It was so much fun.
Yeah, and thanks for voicing one of my personal favorite characters. You do such a fantastic job with him. It's like a blast just to listen to your work. So
I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Perfect voice for Cassian. This is the perfect Cassian.
Good. Let's keep that train moving. You know, let's make sure that just a little spray tan, I'll grow a couple inches, be right there.
Yes, and like cannot wait to see what happens. Like we want to see you on Hulu. I would expect to see John on it.
Yeah, I would be very happy if I booked a series. Yeah, that'd be great. But so everyone, fingers crossed.
We will absolutely.
All right, well, have a good one.
Bye.
Thanks, John.